Eclipse Wars, the fight for eternal light. The Dark Awakening. For thousands of years, the Solarian Order stood as the guardian of light. They were warriors, scientists, and explorers who protected the galaxy from chaos. Their greatest enemy, the Umbraclan, had once been defeated and sealed away in the void. But now, after centuries of silence, the darkness had returned. Commander Rylan Voss of the Solarian fleet stood on the bridge of the Aurora Sentinel, watching the distant stars, or rather, where stars should have been. An entire sector of space had vanished into blackness. No light, no life, just emptiness. "Another system gone," whispered Lieutenant Kira, his second in command. "How are they doing this?" Rylan clenched his fists. "We need answers. If the Umbraclan have a weapon that can devour stars, then the entire galaxy is at risk." A distress signal interrupted their thoughts. The screen flickered, revealing a terrified scientist from the Lyra Prime research station. "This is Dr. Merrick. We are under attack. The shadows. They're alive. We need immediate evacua." The message cut off. Silence followed. "Set course for Lyra Prime," Rylan ordered. "We're not letting them fall." The Aurora Sentinel jumped into hyperspace. The war had begun. As soon as the Aurora Sentinel dropped out of hyperspace, alarms blared across the ship. Lyra Prime was no longer the glowing blue world they had known. It was covered in thick, swirling shadows. Rylan and his team took a shuttle to the surface. They landed in the middle of the research base, where emergency lights flickered in the darkness. "Stay alert," Rylan warned, gripping his plasma rifle. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The team moved cautiously, scanning for survivors. Suddenly, a scientist stumbled out of the shadows, gasping for air. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "They're inside the light," he whispered. "What?" Kira asked. The man collapsed, his body convulsing. Before their eyes, his shadow stretched unnaturally, rising from the ground like a living creature. Then it lunged at them. "Open fire," Rylan shouted. Bolts of plasma illuminated the darkness, but the shadows only recoiled for a moment before advancing again. The creatures twisted and swarmed, pulling more victims into their endless abyss. This isn't just an invasion, Kira realized. This is extermination. Back aboard the Aurora Sentinel, the crew analyzed their data. The enemy wasn't just using a weapon. They had become the weapon. The Umbraclan had discovered a way to merge with darkness itself. "They've evolved," Dr. Elise Carter explained. "They can consume energy, light, even living beings. We need a countermeasure." "Then we find one," Rylan said. "We're taking the fight to them." The battle for the galaxy had only just begun. The dying suns. The Lyra system was one of humanity's greatest achievements. 4 habitable planets, billions of people, and a thriving trade network. Yet, on the 3rd day of the eclipse cycle, it went silent. Deep space monitoring stations reported the first anomaly. The Lyra star had dimmed. At first, scientists believed it to be a natural solar phenomenon. But within hours, the entire system was plunged into absolute darkness. No sunlight, no energy, just cold, endless night. Sol Command, the highest military authority of humanity, tried to contact Lyra's colonies. No response. Emergency fleets were dispatched, but what they found was beyond terrifying. The planets were frozen. Entire cities, once filled with life, stood abandoned and encased in ice. Vehicles were halted mid-motion, their passengers frozen where they sat. There was no sign of struggle, no alarms, just a world where time had stopped. The suns were dead. Scientists struggled to explain it. Stars do not simply die overnight. Yet Lyra's had vanished, leaving only a void where light once existed. It was not a supernova, not an explosion. There was simply nothing. Then came the survivor. A single ship drifted toward Sol's outer defense line. It was battered, its hull scorched as if it had flown through a dying star. The pilot was barely alive, his body drained of warmth. When medics pulled him from the cockpit, He clutched their arms, his breath ragged. His eyes, wide with terror, reflected something unseen, something that still haunted him. "They eat the light," he whispered. "They consume the stars." His words sent a chill through Sol Command. The man was identified as Captain Doran Vale, a security officer from Lyra Prime. His ship's black box contained fragmented footage, grainy images of a colossal shadow spreading across the stars, consuming them like a living void. Scientists dismissed it as interference. Generals saw it as hallucination. But the Solarian Order, the ancient keepers of humanity's celestial history, recognized the signs immediately. "This is not the first time," whispered Grandmaster Solas, the leader of the Order. "The Umbraclan have returned." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, inside the Solarian sanctum, ancient texts spoke of the Eclipse Wars, an age-old conflict between light and darkness. The Umbraclan were not aliens, nor an invading force. They were something older, something beyond time itself. "They come when the stars grow old," Solas explained to the gathered fleet commanders. "When civilizations grow arrogant in their control of the cosmos." The Umbraclan did not wage war like any known enemy. They did not attack with fleets or armies. They consumed light itself, devouring stars, planets, and energy, turning entire systems into frozen tombs. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not seek conquest or resources. They seek an eternal eclipse, a universe where light no longer exists. Admiral Ray Kessler, commander of Earth's defense fleets, was skeptical. "You expect me to believe in shadow creatures that eat stars?" Solas gestured to the holographic projection of Lyra. "Do you see a battlefield? Do you see wreckage? No, you see the aftermath. A graveyard where once there was life." For the first time, the admirals understood the truth. This was not an invasion. It was an extinction. A decision had to be made. If the Umbraclan had truly returned, humanity had little time to prepare. Grandmaster Solas urged immediate action to find the source of the Umbraclan's power and stop them before they reached Sol. But politics slowed the response. Some leaders refused to believe the threat was real. Others argued that if the Umbraclan could destroy suns, then fighting them was hopeless. Admiral Kessler refused to wait. She deployed Fleet Nova, humanity's most advanced warships, to investigate Lyra further. If the Umbraclan were still there, she would face them head-on. As the fleet departed, Captain Doran Vale sat in a medical bay, staring at the stars beyond the window. He whispered the same words over and over. "The light is fading. The light is fading." Then, at the edge of the system, a new signal was detected. A black sphere had appeared near Proxima Centauri, growing, pulsing, like a wound in space itself. And from it, the shadows began to move. The Umbral Prophecy. The Solarian Vault had been sealed for centuries, hidden beneath the icy crust of Titan. Only the highest-ranking scholars of the Sol Dominion knew of its existence. When the emergency distress beacon activated, Supreme Commander Adrian Voss himself led the expedition to unlock its secrets. As the heavy blast doors groaned open, the team stepped inside, their lights slicing through the darkness. Ancient glyphs adorned the walls, glowing faintly as they approached. In the center of the chamber, a holographic projector flickered to life. An ethereal voice echoed through the vault. "When the stars fade, the eternal eclipse shall rise." A chill settled over the group. Adrian Voss clenched his fists. "What does it mean?" High Scholar Raina approached the glyphs, tracing them with her fingers. "This prophecy is older than our recorded history. It speaks of a force capable of extinguishing stars themselves." Before anyone could respond, a blaring alarm sounded through the command center in orbit. A captured Umbraclan warrior, one of the mysterious invaders from the outer void, had regained consciousness in the interrogation chamber. Voss wasted no time. "Bring him to me." Minutes later, the team stood in front of the restrained warrior. His pale, almost translucent skin shimmered under the cold white lights. His silver eyes bore no emotion, but his lips curled into a haunting smile. "Your son is next," he whispered. A wave of horror passed through the officers. Voss grabbed the warrior by the collar. "What do you mean?" The Umbraclan's smile widened. "The Eternal Eclipse is coming, and you will kneel before it." With one last breath, the warrior convulsed violently, dark veins spreading across his skin before his body disintegrated into ash. The room fell into stunned silence. "Get me the fleet," Voss commanded. "We need to prepare for war." The Solarian fleet mobilized with unprecedented speed. Hundreds of battleships and dreadnoughts formed defensive positions across the solar system. War councils buzzed with strategies, but none could prepare for the horror that unfolded near Proxima Centauri. The first distress signal came from the research station orbiting the red dwarf star. "We are detecting gravitational anomalies. Something massive is materializing." The message cut off abruptly. The fleet's long-range scanners soon picked up the anomaly. A vast black sphere, darker than space itself, had appeared near Proxima Centauri. It pulsed with an eerie energy, and its presence was already affecting nearby celestial bodies, causing violent gravitational distortions. As the fleet moved into formation, a transmission cut through all frequencies. The voice was deep, mechanical, and laced with an unnatural resonance. "Kneel before the Eternal Eclipse." On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. Broadcast networks were hijacked, repeating the same chilling message. Across the colonies, civilians watched in terror as their skies flickered, stars dimming unnaturally. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the SSV Solaris, his face set in grim determination. "We hold the line. We protect Sol, no matter the cost." In the vast emptiness of space, the black sphere pulsed again. Then, without warning, the star Proxima Centauri began to flicker. And then, it went out. Darkness had begun its march toward Earth. The Black Armada. The Eclipse Rift had been silent for years. A strange tear in space. It had puzzled scientists for decades. But now, something was emerging from its depths. The first ships appeared without warning, massive black vessels that seemed to drink in all surrounding light. The fleet stretched across space like a swarm of shadows, advancing toward the outer defenses of the Sol system. Admiral Keller stood on the bridge of the battleship Solar Wrath, staring at the holographic display. Hundreds of enemy ships now hovered near Neptune's orbit. "Open communications," Keller ordered. "We need to know who they are." The transmission was sent, but no response came. The alien ships remained silent, their hulls featureless, absorbing radar scans and light alike. Keller turned to his tactical officer, Commander Rain. "We can't wait. Fire a warning shot." A beam of high-energy plasma streaked through space, aimed at the nearest enemy ship. It should have melted through armor in seconds, but instead, the plasma vanished into nothing. The black ship remained unharmed. "What the hell?" Rain gasped. "It absorbed it." The fleet opened fire. Silent, dark pulses of energy struck Earth's ships. Hulls twisted and bent in unnatural ways. Some ships blinked out of existence, as if swallowed by the void itself. Keller's heart pounded. "Retreat. Get our people out of here." But it was already too late. The Black Armada had arrived. The first battle at Neptune's orbit ended in disaster. Half the fleet was gone, vanished into nothingness. The survivors limped back to Mars, their crews shaken and afraid. At the Sol Defense Command, top scientists and military leaders gathered in a secure bunker beneath the Martian surface. Among them was Dr. Anya Voss, one of the leading astrophysicists in the system. "The enemy doesn't just have advanced weapons," she said. "They exist between dimensions." The room fell silent. Voss continued, pulling up a 3D model of the enemy ships. "We're calling them the Umbraclan. They phase in and out of reality, slipping through space like ghosts. Our weapons, lasers, plasma cannons, even nuclear warheads, rely on photonic energy. But these ships don't interact with photons the way normal matter does. Admiral Keller clenched his fists. So what do we do? Fight with rocks. Voss gave him a thin smile. Not quite. There is one thing that might work. The ancient star-forged lances. The room erupted in murmurs. The star-forged lances were ancient Solarian relics, weapons from a time before recorded history. Forged from the heart of dying stars, they radiated pure stellar energy. Keller frowned. We don't even know if they exist anymore. Voss locked eyes with him. Then we'd better start looking. The fate of humanity depended on it. The Solarian betrayal. The chamber of the Solarian Grandmaster was silent, filled with the golden glow of the ancient star lanterns. He stood alone, studying the galactic charts, his face lined with years of wisdom and war. Then the doors slid open. Grandmaster Orlan turned, expecting one of his trusted knights. Instead, he saw Commander Vex, his own disciple, standing with a plasma dagger in hand. Vex, what is the meaning of this? Orlan's voice was steady, but his eyes darkened with suspicion. Vex took a slow step forward. Forgive me, Master, but you have left me no choice. With a single precise motion, he plunged the dagger into Orlan's chest. The Grandmaster gasped, his knees buckling. Golden energy flickered around him, then faded. As he collapsed, Vex leaned in and whispered, "The truth must be revealed." Orlan's body hit the cold floor, his final breath escaping into the silent chamber. News of the Grandmaster's assassination spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Solarian Order was thrown into chaos, and humanity, already struggling against the Umbraclan threat, now faced an even greater crisis. On the UHS Valor, General Riker clenched his fists as the report played on the holoscreen. This isn't just murder. This is betrayal. Admiral Sloane narrowed her eyes. And the assassin, Vex, was one of Orlan's own. The Solarian Order is crumbling. Just then, the screen flickered, and a distorted transmission appeared. Vex's face emerged, his expression cold. Listen to me, humanity. The Solarian Order has hidden an artifact, an object of immense power. It is called the Prism Core. With it, you can reignite dead stars. You can fight back against the Umbraclan. But the Order has chosen to keep it locked away. They fear its cost. Riker's heart pounded. Where is it? The Solarian Archives, Vex answered. Deep within the celestial vaults on Epsilon Prime. If you truly want to win this war, you must take it. The transmission cut off. A heavy silence filled the room. Prepare a strike team, Riker ordered. We're taking the Prism Core. The UHS Valor and its fleet arrived in orbit over Epsilon Prime, a planet bathed in silver light. Below, the Solarian Archives stood like an ancient fortress, guarded by towering spires of energy. Riker led the assault team down. They landed on the outer platforms, weapons ready. The air crackled with tension. Solarian defenders, those still loyal to the Order, rushed to intercept them. Laser fire erupted in the corridors. The Solarians fought fiercely, but the humans pressed forward. Riker and his team reached the celestial vaults, sealed behind an ancient barrier. Stand back, Sloane called out as the demolitions team planted charges. A deafening blast shook the ground, and the vault doors crumbled. Inside, the Prism Core rested on a pedestal, pulsating with light. It was no larger than a human heart, yet it hummed with the power of a dying sun. We have it. Riker secured the core in a containment field. Fall back. As they ran, the archives trembled. The Order's remaining forces had activated the fail-safe system. Walls collapsed, energy fields erupted, and explosions tore through the temple. They barely made it to their ships. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, alarms blared across every screen. "Sir," a young officer shouted. "Something massive just entered Earth's orbit." Riker turned to the viewport, and his breath caught in his throat. A colossal Umbraclan dreadnought, larger than any ship they had ever seen, loomed over Earth, its dark silhouette blocking out the sun. The war was far from over. The siege of Sol. The darkness came without warning. The eclipse field, a vast cosmic shroud, spread across the solar system, swallowing the light of the sun. Earth fell into twilight. Cities flickered with emergency lights, but the chill of space crept in. Temperatures plummeted. Crops withered in the fields. Oceans began to freeze at the edges. Panic gripped the world. Above Earth, the Solarian shield, the planet's last defense, hummed with energy. It had held against countless invaders, absorbing firepower that could shatter moons. But against the eclipse field, it was helpless. The shadow consumed everything in its path, pressing against the shield's barrier like an endless tide. Then, the barrier cracked. A single, sharp fracture ran across the glowing dome. Sirens blared in every military base across the planet. On the bridge of the command station Aegis Prime, Admiral Elias Voss clenched his fists. He had prepared for this moment, but preparation meant nothing now. "Sir, the shield is collapsing," shouted Lieutenant Umbraclan. Her voice shook with disbelief. "We won't last another hour." Voss exhaled slowly. "Deploy all fleets. We fight to the last ship." From Earth's orbital docks, hundreds of warships launched into the void. Fighters, cruisers, and dreadnoughts formed into battle formations. Their weapons glowed with an eerie blue light. The power of the star-forged lances, stolen from the enemy and repurposed for human hands. The eclipse field roiled, and from its depths came the Voidborn fleet. They were unlike any enemy humanity had faced. Their ships moved like living shadows, twisting and bending through space, impossible to track. They opened fire. Pulses of black energy streaked toward Earth's fleet. The first wave of ships vanished in an instant, erased from existence as if they had never been. Yet humanity did not break. Admiral Voss slammed his fist against the console. "All ships, engage. Use the lances." The void lit up with piercing beams of energy. Star-forged lances struck the enemy ships, cutting through their shadows, tearing them apart. The Voidborn screamed, an unearthly, mind-rattling sound that echoed through the comms. For the first time, they bled. But the eclipse field was not done. It deepened. Reality itself began to warp. Space twisted around Earth like a vortex, pulling the planet toward the darkness. The world shook with unseen forces. Buildings cracked. Mountains crumbled. Time itself felt unsteady, like a clock skipping beats. On Earth's surface, chaos erupted. Governments lost control. The sun, dim and dying, cast long shadows over cities filled with riots and prayers. And then the rogue Solarians arrived. A fleet of golden ships broke through the darkness, shimmering like fireflies in the abyss. They were once part of humanity but had vanished long ago, seeking power beyond the stars. Now they returned with the Prism Core, a device said to hold the only hope of repelling the eclipse field. A message appeared on every screen, every device, every radio. "We hold salvation," spoke a voice like thunder. "But a price must be paid." Admiral Voss narrowed his eyes. "What price?" The response was cold. "A sacrifice. One life, willingly given with the right soul." The war raged on, but now humanity faced a different battle, a choice that could decide their fate. Episode 5. The Siege of Sol. The bridge of Aegis Prime fell into silence. Every officer, every soldier, stared at the message on their screens. A sacrifice. One life in exchange for salvation. But whose? Admiral Voss turned toward his officers. "Do we even know what this Prism Core does?" Dr. Celine Veris, chief scientist of Earth's defense, adjusted her glasses. "The Prism Core is an ancient artifact, possibly pre-human. The Solarians must have found a way to activate it." Lieutenant Chen's voice was bitter. "And now they demand a price." Outside, the battle rage. Human ships fought with unmatched fury, but the Voidborn fleet was endless. Even with the Starforged lances, Earth's forces were being pushed back. They were losing. Admiral Voss knew there was no time. He opened a direct channel to the Solarian fleet. Who must be sacrificed? A hologram flickered to life. A Solarian commander, his face hidden by a golden mask, spoke. A soul touched by the eclipse, a being that has walked the edge of oblivion and returned. A murmur spread through the bridge. That description fit only one person, Admiral Voss. He had survived an attack by the Voidborn years ago, a battle where his entire crew was lost, but he alone returned. He had seen the darkness and lived. Voss exhaled. If it will save Earth, I'll do it. No. Lieutenant Chen stepped forward. There must be another way. Dr. Varys shook her head. We don't have time to argue. Voss turned to his crew, his family. This isn't a debate. If my life can push back the eclipse, then it's worth it. A moment of silence. Then, slowly, the officers saluted him. A final act of respect. The Solarians wasted no time. A beam of golden light engulfed Voss, pulling him into their ship. The prism core flared to life. Colors beyond comprehension swirled within it. A pulse of energy spread outward, cutting through the eclipse field like a blade. The darkness recoiled. The sun flared brighter. The warships of the Voidborn shuddered and began to dissolve, their forms unraveling like mist. On Earth, the people looked up. The sky, once a realm of darkness, was returning to light. The battle was over. But Admiral Voss was gone, the hero lost to the void, yet never forgotten. The Lightborn awakening. The prism core hummed with power, a swirling mass of energy unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Deep within the heart of Earth's last bastion, scientists and engineers worked frantically, their eyes wide with both awe and fear. The core held the key to victory, but there was one problem. It needed a living host. Commander Lyra Dane stood before it, her jaw set in determination. She had fought in every major battle against the Umbraclan, seen entire cities reduced to ashes, and lost friends to the darkness. If there was even the slightest chance to turn the tide, she had to take it. Commander, we don't know what will happen, Dr. Elias warned, gripping his tablet tightly. This energy, it's pure, concentrated light. It could destroy you. Lyra smiled, though there was no humor in it. Then let's hope it doesn't. She stepped forward, placing her hands on the cold metallic surface of the core. Instantly, golden light surged through her body, burning through her veins like liquid fire. She gasped, her vision turning white, as she felt herself being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. The air crackled. A pulse of energy exploded outward, knocking everyone to the ground. When the light faded, she remained standing. But she was no longer just Lyra Dane. Her body shimmered with golden radiance, her eyes glowed like miniature suns, and her presence alone cast away the shadows that had long haunted humanity. She had become something new. She had become the first Lightborn. High above Earth, the Umbraclan fleet floated like an endless sea of darkness. Their capital warship, the Eclipse Maw, loomed over the planet, its shadow swallowing the sky. Within its cold halls, the Overlord Nixthar watched as his commanders reported the impossible. Overlord, the eclipse field is weakening. A new energy signature has emerged from the human stronghold. Nixthar's many eyes narrowed. Impossible. No force can rival the great eclipse. Show me. A holographic projection flickered to life before him. It displayed the surface of Earth, where a single figure, blazing like a newborn star, had risen into the sky. Lyra Dane lifted her hand, and a beam of golden energy lanced forward, slicing through an Umbraclan destroyer like it was made of paper. The warship erupted into a silent explosion, its shadowy hull disintegrating in an instant. Nixthar felt something he had not known in millennia. Unease. The Lightborn must die, he hissed, or the great eclipse will never come. Lyra hovered above the battlefield, her very presence pushing back the oppressive darkness. More enemy ships descended upon her, their cannons unleashing a storm of black fire. She raised her hands, and a golden barrier formed around her, deflecting every blast. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she sent arcs of light slicing through the enemy fleet. Below, human soldiers watched in stunned silence. Hope, a feeling they had almost forgotten, surged through them. Cheers erupted as Lyra continued her assault, destroying one Umbraclan vessel after another. The once invincible Armada now looked fragile before her divine might. But deep within her, something was changing. She could feel the power consuming her, burning away the person she had once been. Her skin shimmered like molten gold, and her thoughts became something more. Something vast. It was as if she were no longer just Lyra Dane, but a force of the universe itself. "Commander," a voice crackled through her earpiece. It was Captain Voss, her second in command. "You need to stop. Your vitals are unstable." She clenched her fists, watching as another Umbraclan warship fell before her light. "I can't stop now, Voss. If I do, we lose everything." Voss's voice was desperate. "But you." Before he could finish, a massive shadow loomed over her. The Eclipse Maw had arrived. Nexthar himself had come to end the Lightborn. The battle for the Celestial Forge. The dying sun of Vortilis burned like a wounded beast, its surface rippling with waves of molten fire. Deep inside, hidden within layers of plasma and magnetic storms, lay the Celestial Forge, an ancient construct from a forgotten age. It was said to be the only place in the universe capable of creating star-forged lances, weapons powerful enough to kill the Umbraclan permanently. Humanity had discovered its location only days ago. If they could activate it, they would gain the means to turn the tide of war. But Nixthar, the Umbraclan overlord, would not allow that to happen. He had dispatched an Eclipse Armada, hundreds of void-drenched warships filled with shadow creatures, to annihilate the forge before humanity could claim it. Aboard the UHS Valor's Edge, Admiral Kane studied the incoming fleet with grim determination. "They're not holding back," he muttered. "This is their kill strike." Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly with celestial energy. Ever since her connection with the Lightborn had deepened, she had become something more than human. But even she wasn't sure how much more. "We must reach the forge before they do," Lyra said. "If they destroy it, we lose everything." Kane nodded and turned to his officers. "All ships form defensive lines. We punch through their blockade, no matter what it takes." The battle began the moment humanity's fleet entered the corona of the star. Plasma storms twisted like living serpents, lashing at hulls and melting weaker ships into slag. Umbraclan vessels moved like shadows, slipping through the fiery waves, their dark cannons firing beams of void energy. The Valor's Edge shuddered as one such beam scraped its hull. The shields flickered but held. "They're trying to cut us off from the forge," Commander Darius growled. "They know we're desperate." "Then let's give them a reason to be desperate," Kane said. "Deploy the plasma disruptors. Burn a path through." Humanity's ships fired their disruptors, sending concentrated waves of solar energy into the enemy ranks. Several Umbraclan vessels dissolved instantly, their void matter unable to withstand the sheer heat. Lyra closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses. Deep inside the dying sun, she could feel the forge, dormant, lifeless, waiting for something. Waiting for her. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Just a little longer." The Celestial Forge was a massive construct, floating in the heart of the star like a forgotten god's anvil. Its towering spires shimmered with the remnants of long-lost energy, but the core remained dark. As Lyra and her team landed on the surface, the heat was unbearable even with their protective suits. The ground pulsed beneath their feet, threatening to crack open at any moment. "We need to reactivate it," Lyra said. "Find the central conduit. There must be a way to reignite the core." Before they could move, the darkness arrived. Umbraclan warforms crawled out of fissures in space, their bodies twisting like living shadows. Some had elongated claws that dripped with void energy. Others had hollow, empty faces that consumed light itself. "They won't let us do this easily," Darius muttered, raising his plasma rifle. "Then we fight," Lyra said. The battle on the forge was brutal. Soldiers fought against creatures that had no true form, shadows that screamed when struck but never truly died. For every Umbraclan that fell, another seemed to rise from the void. Then, a massive explosion shook the forge. Lyra turned in horror as she saw one of the enemy's capital ships descending, its weapons aimed directly at the core. "They're going to destroy it," Darius shouted. Lyra knew what she had to do. She ran toward the core, ignoring the battles raging around her. She could feel the forge calling to her, sensing her presence. But it needed more. It needed light. It needed life. She placed her hands on the central control panel, and golden energy erupted from her fingertips. The ancient machine responded, its spires crackling with awakening power. But it wasn't enough. "I have to give it more," she realized. With a deep breath, she channeled a piece of her own celestial energy into the forge. Pain lanced through her body as the machine drank her light, consuming a part of her essence. Her skin began to crystallize into shimmering energy, her very being merging with the forge. The machine roared to life. Golden beams shot outward, piercing the darkness. The enemy capital ship disintegrated in an instant, its void energy unable to withstand the forge's radiance. All across the battlefield, the Umbraclan recoiled, screaming as the first Starforged lances took shape within the factory. The weapons were real. The war had changed. Darius rushed to Lyra's side. "Lyra, can you hear me?" She turned to him, her body flickering between solid and energy. "It worked," she whispered, smiling. "The forge is ours." Kane's voice crackled over the comms. "We've done it. We finally have weapons that can kill them." The battle was over, but the cost was high. Lyra knew she was no longer just human. She had become something more, a living conduit of light. And she knew that the war was far from over. The Eclipse throne. The truth had finally been uncovered. The Nixstar were not destroying light out of hatred or destruction. They were trying to free themselves. For eons, they had been trapped in a state between existence and nothingness, cursed to drift in the shadows of creation. Light was their prison. It kept them bound, unable to fully exist or fully vanish. Now they had only one goal: to create an eternal eclipse. If every star in the universe was extinguished, if all sources of light were erased, they would finally be free. And once they were, they would reshape reality into a realm of pure darkness, a place where only they could exist. Lyra stood before the command table, staring at the holographic projection of their next target, the Eclipse throne. It was no ordinary fortress. It was hidden inside a collapsed galaxy, a place where gravity had folded space into an endless labyrinth of darkness. No normal fleet could navigate it. No light could pierce it. Even time itself twisted unpredictably within its depths. "We don't have a choice," Lyra said, her voice firm. "If they finish their ritual, if the last remaining stars fall, we lose everything." Commander Riker, an old war veteran, narrowed his eyes. "This is a suicide mission, Lyra. Even if we get inside, there's no guarantee we can stop them. And even if we stop them, there's no guarantee we'll make it out." Lyra clenched her fists. "Then we make sure they don't make it out either." Silence fell over the room. The assembled captains, warriors, and strategists exchanged grim looks. They all understood what this meant. If they went, they weren't coming back. But one by one, they nodded. They had come too far to turn back now. The Darkfire fleet, humanity's last hope, jumped into the heart of the collapsed galaxy. The moment they arrived, their ship's sensors went wild. Space itself was shifting. Time loops flickered. Shadowy echoes of past battles replayed like ghosts in the void. Ahead, the Eclipse throne loomed like a giant wound in reality. It was a fortress forged from the remains of dying stars. surrounded by swirling clouds of cosmic debris. The energy around it pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, slow, unstoppable. "Stay in formation," Lyra shouted over comms as the fleet moved forward. "Use the beacons. If you drift too far, you'll never find your way back." The battle began before they even reached the fortress. From the darkness, the Nixthar Dreadguard emerged, massive beings of shifting shadows, their forms twisting and warping like living nightmares. Their ships were unlike anything human eyes had seen before, smooth, black, and hungry, absorbing every bit of light around them. The first wave of attacks tore through the fleet. Ships vanished into the void. Some simply ceased to exist, erased as if they had never been. "We push through," Lyra commanded. No retreat. Her ship, the Sol Reaver, led the charge. Plasma cannons roared, launching streams of white-hot energy into the darkness. The other ships followed, fighting desperately, their weapons lighting up the abyss. The battle raged on, but Lyra had no time to watch. She had one mission: get to the Eclipse throne. "We're going in," she ordered. The Sol Reaver and a handful of surviving ships dived toward the fortress, weaving through collapsing space and burning debris. Behind them, the rest of the fleet held the line, buying them precious seconds. Inside, the Eclipse throne was even worse than expected. It was not just a fortress. It was a living entity. The walls pulsed. Shadows moved on their own. Whispers filled the air. Voices of the lost, of those who had come before and failed. Lyra and her team pressed forward, weapons ready. Every step was a battle. The Nixthar were waiting, their twisted forms barely visible in the darkness. They struck without warning, emerging from the void, their claws and tendrils lashing out. "Keep moving," Lyra shouted. "Don't stop." They pushed deeper, fighting through endless corridors of shifting reality. Then, finally, they reached it. The Eclipse Core, a massive sphere of swirling black energy, held in place by impossible gravity. This was the heart of the ritual. This was what had to be destroyed. But standing before it was their final obstacle. The Umbraclan High Lord, a towering figure wrapped in shadows, its eyes burning with cold, empty light. "You cannot stop this," it spoke, its voice echoing across dimensions. "Light is a lie. Darkness is truth. We will be free. And you will be nothing." Lyra raised her weapon. Not today. The final battle had begun. The last supernova. The Eclipse throne was not just a fortress. It was a wound in the fabric of reality. A hollowed-out black hole, swirling with trapped light and frozen moments of time. The very air shimmered, bending in unnatural ways. No human mind could fully understand it. Yet here they stood, at the edge of the abyss, ready for the final battle. Lyra hovered above the battlefield, her body glowing like a dying sun. The prism core inside her was nearly empty, its energy almost spent. She could feel herself fading, her humanity slipping away with every pulse of light. But there was no time to hesitate. The Umbraclan were here. The Shadow Legion swarmed around the Eclipse throne, their bodies like living voids, devouring all light. Nixthar, the eternal darkness, watched from his throne of collapsing stars. His presence alone was enough to drain the color from reality, to turn hope into despair. "This is the end, human." Nixthar's voice echoed across the battlefield. "You burn so brightly, but all light must die." The human fleet opened fire. The Eclipse throne warped their lasers and missiles, bending them into spirals of failure. The void beasts of the Umbraclan struck back, devouring ships whole. But humanity had come prepared. They had one final weapon, one last, desperate hope. The captured Oblivion engine, a weapon stolen from the enemy, pulsed deep within the heart of the fleet. Scientists had modified it, transformed it into something new. A controlled supernova. If detonated correctly, it could unleash a blast powerful enough to rip through even the Umbraclan. "Are we ready?" General Kell's voice crackled through the comms. Lyra clenched her fists. "We don't have a choice. Do it." The order was given. The Oblivion engine activated. A new star was born in the darkness. The explosion was unlike anything seen before. A sun ignited in the heart of the Eclipse throne, burning white-hot. The shockwave ripped through space, vaporizing thousands of Umbraclan in an instant. The black hole fortress trembled, its warped gravity distorting under the force of the blast. Lyra screamed as the light tore through her. The prism core inside her absorbed as much as it could, but it was too much. Her body shone like a collapsing star, flickering between existence and nothingness. She felt herself slipping away. The Umbraclan shrieked as the supernova consumed them. The darkness recoiled, burning away like mist in the morning sun. 99% of their forces were gone. It should have been over. But Nixthar remained. The ancient horror emerged from the blast, his body torn but not defeated. His form was shifting, his edges unraveling like smoke. Yet his power was undiminished, and he was not alone. A shadow tendril lashed out, wrapping around Lyra before she could react. Her light dimmed instantly, trapped in his grasp. The prism core flickered, barely holding on. "Did you truly believe you could end me?" Nixthar's voice was cold, amused. "Light fades. Shadows remain." Lyra struggled, but she had nothing left. The prism core had given everything. She felt herself being pulled into the abyss, deeper into the endless dark. The fleet was in chaos. The supernova had crippled them as well. They had gambled everything on this final attack, and they had lost. Hope was gone. And then, the impossible happened. A new light flared across the battlefield, brighter than the supernova itself. Something was coming, something Nixthar had not foreseen. The final battle was not over yet. The dawn of the infinite sun. The Eclipse throne trembled, its dark obsidian form cracking as golden fire surged through its core. The impossible had happened. A new star ignited in the void, bathing the battlefield in endless light. The Umbraclan shrieked, their shadowy forms twisting and disintegrating as the golden radiance burned them from existence. At the center of it all stood Lyra, or what was once Lyra. Her mortal body was gone, replaced by a being of pure celestial fire. Her eyes burned like miniature suns, her flowing hair now golden flames dancing with cosmic power. She was no longer human. She had become something more, something eternal. Nixthar, the Shadow Emperor, staggered backward. His once mighty form was reduced to a withering specter, his darkness unable to withstand the endless light. He gazed at Lyra, his fading essence unraveling like smoke in the wind. "You have doomed reality to endless light," he whispered, his voice cracking with both pain and awe. With a final agonizing cry, Nixthar dissolved into nothingness. The war was over. The Umbraclan, who had ruled the void for eons, were no more. Humanity had won. But at what cost? The remnants of the human fleet watched in silence. The Eclipse throne no longer existed. It had become a star, a golden sun burning in the void where there was once only darkness. The soldiers, the pilots, the commanders, they had all fought for this moment, but none of them had expected this. Admiral Rains stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the new sun through the massive viewport. His hands trembled. "She's gone," he whispered. "Lyra's gone." "No," whispered Dr. Anya Vasquez, the scientist who had once guided Lyra's journey. "She's still here. She's everywhere." Rains exhaled slowly. He had seen wars end before, but never like this. Never with one of their own ascending into something beyond human understanding. Lyra had saved them, but she had also become something they could never reach again. Days passed. News spread across the surviving human colonies. The war was over. The threat of the Umbraclan was gone. For the first time in centuries, humanity was free to explore the universe without fear. But something was wrong. Astronomers across the colonies noticed strange anomalies. The light from Lyra's sun did not fade with distance. It remained constant, illuminating regions of space that should have been in darkness. The natural cycle of night and day on several planets was disrupted. Some whispered that the balance of the universe had been broken. Then came the final revelation. On Earth, the world's leading astronomers gathered in the Grand Observatory. Data from thousands of telescopes confirmed the impossible. A second sun had appeared in Earth's sky. It was smaller than the first, but its golden light was unmistakable. It rose at dawn alongside Earth's original sun and set with it in the evening. The entire planet was bathed in eternal daylight. No more nights, no more shadows. The world stood still. In the quiet of the observatory, one scientist whispered the words everyone feared. "She's watching us." For a moment, no one spoke. Then came the final question, the one no one dared to ask, but everyone knew must be answered. For how long? The final eclipse. The battlefield stretched across the void, where light and darkness clashed in a war that would decide the fate of the universe. The celestial forge, a radiant construct of infinite energy, floated in the heart of the cosmic war zone. It pulsed with golden flames, the last hope for the forces of Lightborn. Commander Ryan stood at the edge of his flagship, the Sol Guardian, watching the swarm of Shadowborn ships darken the space before him. Their leader, the Eclipse King, hovered at the center of the darkness, a being of pure void, his form flickering like a dying star. "This is it," Ryan whispered, "the final battle." The prophecy of the Eternal Eclipse had warned of this moment. If the Shadowborn succeeded in consuming the celestial forge, eternal darkness would fall, and light would vanish forever. The Lightborn forces, warriors infused with cosmic energy, had gathered for their last stand. The war erupted in a blinding explosion of energy. The Lightborn ships, golden and radiant, surged forward, unleashing beams of pure starfire. The Shadowborn retaliated with void lances, weapons that devoured light itself. Space twisted as reality cracked under the force of their weapons. Ryan led the charge, piloting his ship straight into the enemy lines. "Hold formation. Protect the forge at all costs," he ordered. Beside him, Admiral Kayla's fleet flanked the enemy from the left. "We must push forward. The forge's energy is weakening," she warned. A Shadowborn dreadnought emerged from the darkness, its hull absorbing all light. Its weapons fired a massive pulse of entropy. The Lightborn cruiser disintegrated instantly. "That thing is draining our energy." Ryan gritted his teeth. "We need to take it down." Suddenly, the forge trembled, releasing a pulse of golden fire. The Lightborn warriors on the battlefield felt a surge of power. Their weapons burned brighter, their ships moved faster. The celestial forge was fighting back. "Use the surge. Hit them now," Ryan commanded. A squadron of Lightborn fighters, led by Captain Leora, darted through the enemy lines, striking the dreadnought's core. A brilliant explosion consumed the void ship, tearing it apart. For a moment, hope returned. But then, the Eclipse King raised his hand.